Chapter 21. I wanted to hide from everyone and everything, but since that wasn't really an option, I hid from everyone and everything until after breakfast, and then went off to the classroom. I showed up exactly on time, hoping the others would already be inside and seated so I could avoid conversation. But Mrs. Price was waiting outside the door for me.
Good morning, Zeke.
Her smile was crooked and almost endearing in a reptilian sort of way. No, I take that back. Steve was endearing in a reptilian sort of way. Mrs. Price was something else. I'd settle for insectoid, at least until I had an insect friend. Hey, I said, dazzling her with my linguistic charm. I tried to walk past her, but she stood in front of the door.
I'm glad we had a chance to talk last night. I want to be sure you understand that I have a job to do, Zeke, and it isn't always easy.
I get it, I said, cutting her off before she could say anything else. I didn't want to hear any speeches. You think I'm swell, but you don't want me having friends. Oh, and if it should prove to be in the best interests of the planet Earth to ship me off to be tortured and killed, you'll be first in line with the packing tape.
Not first in line, she said.
Oh, you big softy, I said, and made my way into the classroom. Things with Tamret weren't so easily resolved, though. She barely looked at me during class, and she sat with me and Steve for lunch, but she didn't say more than 3 words. Steve, somewhat oblivious to mammalian moves, talked cheerfully about our victory over the other humans the night before. After she finished picking at her food, Tamret excused herself and began to walk away. I hurried after her. I want to talk to you about what you saw, or what you think you saw last night. Mrs. Price and I aren't friends. She just came up to me. She didn't slow her pace. She may have even quickened it.
It's not my business what you do with the members of your own species. I know how important they are to you.
I put a hand on Tamret's arm and she shrugged me off, but at least she stopped. I get it, that it looked like we were being all chummy, but we weren't.
I'll tell you what it looked like, Tamret said. It looked like there's no amount of abuse you won't take from someone, as long as they're from your own world. That woman wants nothing more than to throw you to the fads, and she wants to keep you from the only beings who care about what happens to you. But even after all that, you're still trying to get on her good side?
I wasn't, I insisted. And I don't want anything to do with her.
What about Nyana, who's so beautiful? Are you still ready to run off with her?
You asked me if she was pretty for our species, and I told you, but so what? Some people are pretty. I still don't like her because she's unpleasant.
I'm unpleasant.
Not to me, you're not, I said quietly. And that seemed to have some effect on her. She lowered her defenses, if only slightly. I like you, Tamret, I told her. I wasn't admitting to anything, but I was still saying I liked her. And that admission made the rest of it somehow easier. The words just came out of my mouth before I could stop them. I don't know how to be any clearer about it. I don't know why you're so angry with me. She took a step back, and she looked sad, which wasn't the reaction I'd been hoping for.
I don't think you know what you feel. What I do know is this. You never miss a chance to try and get closer to the people who treat you like garbage. You're so desperate to belong with them, you don't care how they treat us or how they treat you.
Of course I care, but you don't understand what it's like to be completely shut out.
Oh, don't I? She asked.
Okay, that was really stupid. Maybe, I attempted. Maybe it's not the same with your kind, but human beings are extremely social creatures. On my world, cats don't live in groups, so maybe... Her eyes went wide, and I could see the word cat had produced some kind of unflattering translation.
Is that what I am to you? Some kind of domesticated animal?
No, that's not what I'm saying. It's just that we need to be part of a group, and I don't think it's so terrible that I want to be part of my group. She took a step back, like she didn't trust herself not to hurt me. Her jaw jutted out, her whiskers twitched, and her eyes tightened to narrow slits.
That's your problem, Zeke. That's why I'm angry with you. You are part of a group. Steve and I are your group, but to you it's just a temporary arrangement until the beings from your planet take you back.
That's not true, I said. But I wasn't sure now. Was she right? Would I have dropped the randoms if the rest of the humans had invited me in? Would I have lost interest in Tamret if Niana had liked me? I honestly didn't know how I would have felt the first week on the station, but now things were different. There's no way I could ever imagine choosing to spend time with the other humans over Steve and Tamret, who'd proven themselves to be the best friends I'd ever had. I knew that was true, but I wish the other humans would still accept me. I didn't want to choose one group over the other. I didn't want to be rejected by any of them. I was certain that was how I felt, but Tamret had seen my face in my moment of indecision, and she was walking away. I wanted to go after her, but there was nothing I could say that'd make a bit of difference. Over the next few days, I continued to log as many hours as I could in the flight sims in the game room. I knew that Tamret was also spending time in the computer lab, working on programming, and I hoped nothing illegal. I continued to gain experience, and now had enough points to move up to level 13, though I kept myself at level 9 so I wouldn't freak out the other humans, who were all 10. I was tempted to put points into strength, but I stuck with the Starship pilot track and continued with agility, intellect, and vision, with a couple of points in health. Steve and Tamret were also 9s, but I knew Steve was actually level 12, well above the rest of the Ishi. Tamret refused to tell me how many experience points she'd racked up, though. About a week after the disastrous incident in the flight simulator, Tamret showed up in the cafeteria just after Steve and I were finishing breakfast. She looked tired, and her fur was matted. Her hair was unkempt, her clothes were wrinkled like she'd slept in them or hadn't slept at all, and her eyes were streaked with red. "Are you okay?" I asked.
I was up all night working on something, she said. And I don't think any of us are okay. You both need to come with me.
We followed her outside to a courtyard, where Halu was sitting on a bench by a fountain, waiting for us. She had her data bracelet keyboard materialized, and she was busy typing away.
You might as well sit down. Not that it matters. You're all pretty much doomed.
Under the circumstances, sitting seemed like good advice. Tamret and I sat on the bench, on opposite sides of Halu. There had been room next to me, and I'd been hoping she'd sit near me. If I was doomed, I'd rather be doomed next to her. "Since when are the two of you friends?" I asked.
"Oh, we're not friends," Halu said. "I don't much like Tamret. She's too moody." "But I'm useful, apparently," Tamret added. "Yes, she has some remarkable computer skills, and she's been helping me look into the matters."
Halu's fingers skittered over her virtual keyboard and called up a file on the selection committee. It was just a bunch of names and their indigenous alphabets, or pictograms, or whatever. If I looked at them for another few seconds, they would translate, but I couldn't be bothered. The names of a bunch of dead aliens, no matter how important they had been in choosing me, wouldn't much matter.
"What do you know about them?" Halu asked. The selection committee usually oversees the initiation process," Steve said. He was still standing, but leaning back slightly on his tail. "This time they're not around, though." "And do you know why they aren't around?"
"They were killed," I said. "Some kind of space attack or accident."
"Are you sure about that?"
Halu asked. I tried to think about what Dr. Rube had said, but I couldn't remember exactly. "What are you trying to tell us?"
"I checked the official news stories. I sent copies of some articles and video feeds to your data accounts if you want to take a look, but they're vague. The committee was on its way from scouting out a small world when their ship was attacked. The articles don't say by whom. It's implied that pirates got them."
"Wouldn't that be unusual?" I asked.
"Unusual, but possible," Halu said. "Confederation space is well patrolled, but there is the occasional renegade or desperate refugee from the Fadic Empire. The point is that whatever happened to the committee is left unclear." "Maybe nobody knows," Steve said. "Space is big. You can't know everything that happens, right?"
Halu continued to type, and the holographic image suddenly flashing with warnings about security and restricted access.
"That's true, but my point is that everything to do with all 5 of these beings has since been buried or classified. Sure, I can find public information about them, articles about their elections, opinion pieces that they wrote, images and interviews, and whatever. But if you go deeper into the government records, everything has been taken out of the public domain and seriously encrypted."
I can't gain access, but I know who is blocking the way. The Xeno Affairs Judicial Council. Chief Justice Junip has made it impossible for anybody to learn anything about what happened to the selection committee.
Which is why Halu messaged me, Temret said.
I suspected Temret would have no problem breaking every law there is protecting the privacy of information, Halu said. She is both skilled and immoral.
And awesome, Temret concurred. But I couldn't gain access to any of the secret files concerning the selection committee. It was all too encrypted.
Too encrypted for you, Ducky?
Steve asked. This earned Steve a smile, and I wish it had been mine.
You have to understand how these Confederation types think, Temret explained. To them, a sign that says, "Do not enter," has the same effect as a high-security fence. That's all they need. But this time they actually put safeguards on their files. The truth is, I could get around the encryption and gain access to the files without too much effort, but it would set off a million alarms, and they'd trace the hack to me within a few hours. I want to know what's in those files, but not enough to get kicked out of the Confederation. Can I point out that you're not supposed to be hacking? I said. Halu, you can't let her do this for you. It was her choice, Halu said. After you asked her, I snapped. You're taking advantage of her, and you don't care if she gets caught. It won't bother you. Well, should it? The point, Temret said, is that there is information out there the Judicial Council doesn't want known, and whatever it is under the absolute highest level of government secrecy. I don't think any of you are here by accident, Halu said. And I don't think the committee disappeared because of a chance act of aggression.
That's not good,
Steve said. What? I asked.
Think about it, he said. These blokes have an open and free society. So why conceal information?
They're obviously trying to hide some sort of blunder. How could the selection committee be a blunder? I asked. Oh no. Genuine worry clouded Tamret's face. Will you guys tell me what's going on? I don't get it.
This is bad, Steve said. The committee chooses its randoms, not randomly. And, except in your case, we're all fairly shady characters. Then the committee is attacked, and the government classifies and encrypts its own records about the committee. I can't help but think that maybe the Confederation itself took them out.
But why? I asked. Then the answer occurred to me. Oh no, I added to the chorus. They were phatic spies, weren't they? Steve nodded.
That's what I'm thinking. It makes sense.
Then that means we weren't chosen to help our world join the Confederation, I said. We were recruited to help the Fads.
And the Confederation knows that, Temret said.
I think you're all drawing unwarranted conclusions, Halu said. You have been here for weeks. Has anyone from the Phatic Empire tried to contact or recruit you? No, I said, but I was thinking that maybe the Fads had been keeping an eye on Earth for a while. Their ships are flying saucers after all, which is what most people report when they claim to have contact with aliens. Maybe just like the Confederation has been seeding its culture in Earth's science fiction, the Fads have been scouting my homeworld as well. Did the Confederation know that? If they knew where to find out, would that make them suspect me? And any of the rest of you? Halu asked. Have any of you had contact with the Fads?
No,
Steve said.
But if they'd been planning on recruiting us, it could be that Zeke's destruction of the ship may have made them rethink their approach.
I'm not convinced, Halu said. Even if Zeke angered them by destroying that ship, it would not alter their position if they had invested time and agents into putting you into place. You may have been chosen to serve the Fads, but you may have been chosen for some other less menacing reason. Either way, it doesn't change the fundamental truth about your situation. Which is what? I asked. The selection committee was up to something illegal, Halu said. And clearly the Confederation doesn't want this discovered. It seems to me that the only the two greatest political forces in the galaxy have in common is that they would rather you weren't around.